I'm often told in the comments of videos that there's a fundamental problem with us all switching to EVs, an issue that cannot be overlooked or overcome. If everyone is going to be able to run an EV, then somehow people without driveways need to be able to charge, and there's no plan for that, I'm told. I can certainly understand the concern. If there is no plan, then we're never going to succeed. Everyone has to be able to switch, no matter what their personal circumstances. I guess there are a couple of possibilities. Either there isn't a plan and you have identified how foolish everyone is being, or there is one, but you don't know what it is. Today, let's discuss what people without driveways are intended to do should the bans on ICE cars come into force. How will they manage? Hello everyone, I'm Andrew, and today I'm going to talk about what's been going on behind the scenes to make EVs available to everyone, including those who don't have a driveway. You see, there is a plan. In fact, there's more than one plan in a way, and each of them is being progressed so that all of the bases are covered. Let's discuss them so that they are better known. There is a problem with EVs. Yes, there is a problem. Lean in while I tell you what it is. The problem with EVs is that they are different from internal combustion engine cars. They often look just like ICE cars, and so it's very tempting to think of them as ICE cars, but that's not the best approach. They are different and need to be thought of a bit differently. With an internal combustion engine car, you take it somewhere to fill it up. As part of a journey perhaps, you go to a fueling station to put fuel in it. Your whole experience of having an ICE car has been this way. Because you are so used to that model of operation, the idea that you go somewhere to fill it, you can be tempted to look for a similar solution when considering an EV and happen upon DC rapid chargers. You might learn that a DC rapid charger can fuel an EV in about 30 minutes or so and laugh. How ridiculous, you think. I'm not waiting 30 minutes for my car to fill up. How completely unworkable. That's because you've applied the wrong mental picture to the problem. With an EV, your default should not be to go somewhere to fill it. Instead, recognise that it's capable of something else, of being used in a different way. With an EV, the general idea is that we instead bring the fuel to the car. We fill it where it is. A car sits for hours at a time not being used, so whenever possible, that's when it gets refueled. If you have a driveway, then it probably sits on there for hours at a time, during which it can be charging. Easy peasy, fueling sorted. But if you don't have a house with a driveway, then what's the equivalent? How are those people going to charge? Well, the answer is that they too will charge where they park. However, there are slightly different solutions to achieving that depending on the circumstances. If you have a flat with off-street parking, then that's ideally where your charger should go. Exactly how that happens depends on who owns the land. If you own or have the legal rights to a dedicated space, then you can have a charge point installed. Because that will be fairly expensive, you might find that you can apply for a grant to help with the costs. That's certainly true in the UK, and the link to the information on that is in the description. If instead there is a landlord who owns the parking spaces, then they can have charge points installed. And again, in England, there are grants for that situation too. If you're in that position, then let your landlord know about the money that's on offer. However, if you don't have any off-street parking, then you need a different solution. If you can park on the street outside the house, then you can look at putting in a cross-pavement solution, such as a gully in which to run a cable. Here is one of those I spotted recently. They have a charge point in the front porch and a small gully across the pavement into which they can put the cable when charging. And guess what? You might be able to apply for a grant for that too, such as this one for the UK. Governments understand that this stuff is important, so they are trying to lend a hand where they can, and that includes making it easier to do by ensuring you don't need to jump through hoops to get permission. Bear in mind that the installations of all of those solutions are likely to make the property more saleable, so there's an extra benefit to having them done. Maybe the majority of the cost will be recouped when you move. If none of these situations apply to you, or you don't want to or can't afford to undertake the work, even with help, then you might feel downhearted. You might think there is nothing to help you, but that's not true. If you park on the street but not outside your house, then you'll use the public network. However, I'm not talking about the stuff in car parks, petrol stations or motorway services, or supermarkets. No, for you, there will be a residential network that you can use. In order to see how this might work, I went to Guildford the other day, as that is one of the towns that is already partway through setting up the network here in England. As you can see, Guildford has areas in which the houses are mostly or exclusively terraced, with no off-street parking. That gives the residents there a problem if they are to own EVs. But Guildford have started building the solution in those areas. In some residential streets that need them, they have created EV charging bays with charge points installed for use by EV owners in that area. There isn't just one of these though. There are numerous examples of this setup in different streets, all within a few minutes' walk. I know that because I did that walk, taking in the various charge points along the way. To be clear, this isn't the limit of the network in the town, it's just a flavour of what's available for those who need the facilities, a selection of what I was able to find within about 10 minutes walk of where I parked. What was interesting was that I found not only charge points as I meandered around, but quite a selection of cars that must all be living off this infrastructure, as almost none of the houses in this area have any other solutions yet. There were all sorts of cars on display in the area, a number of Tesla Model 3 and Model Y, but also quite a few Polestar 2, MG4s, a BMW i3, an Audi Q4 e-tron, Hyundais and Kias of various types, a Renault Scenic, and even a very nice looking Alfa Romeo Junior, all living off the available infrastructure. The only issue really with this sort of infrastructure is the chicken and egg problem. Which comes first, the EVs or the charge points? That's an age-old problem, of course, the catch-22 that is infrastructure being needed before there is economic viability in it being installed. No proof of demand. That's where the government can be of help. Step in and help provide a small initial network, one that can be used by early adopters who prove the viability, the economic case for there being more. In England, there is a plan for that. Let me introduce you to the LEVI funding scheme. LEVI stands for Local EV Infrastructure and is a programme of funding intended to create that initial skeleton network of charge points. Money is available to Tier 1 local authorities. That's the county council to most of us. There are two different aspects to this funding. Firstly, capital funding, which is intended to support the installation of charge points. And secondly, capability funding, which is in use for hiring staff. This second one is interesting, as I think it demonstrates how seriously this is being taken. This is not a one-off, haphazard installation of a few charge points in random locations. Instead, councils are expected to have full-time staff to monitor and manage EV infrastructure from this point on. The objectives of the fund are called out in amongst all of the documentation and include commercialisation of the network, so that investment is not all on the shoulders of the taxpayer. Importantly, it is made clear that this network is being built for the benefit of residents. These are not going in car parks used by shoppers in the centres of towns and cities, but in residential areas, specifically for those without off-street parking. While it isn't specifically called out, I think there will be three phases to the build-out of the network. Phase 1 is use of this public funding to create a small initial network. In Phase 2, the private sector will take over rolling out many more charge points to match the needs in each area using private investment. However, I can imagine a third phase to the rollout, which will revolve around the need to install some more charge points in areas where there is little commercial value in their installation, such as when there is a single resident in a village or area of a town who needs access. In terms of England's LEVI funding, work started in early 2023, and therefore you might be concerned that you have seen no progress to date. However, I'm not concerned or surprised. After all, you need capability, the staff within the councils, employed and then trained, and you need to know where the charges are needed before you can even think about deploying the capital. Even once you know what the need is, councils have to find commercial partners to do the installations, do the due diligence on them, and award those commercial contracts before any charge points can go in. Alright, so the LEVI funding is about England. What about elsewhere? Well, that's where I hand over to you. I can't possibly know all of the schemes that exist in other countries, so your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to find out what's happening where you live, how this problem will be solved for you. My advice to you, if you don't have off-street parking, is to get involved. Find out what your local government's plan is, help shape it to ensure it solves your problem. Because, rest assured, there will be a plan for this sort of network in most countries in Europe, and plenty more besides. One quick word about the cost of public charging, the price per unit you will pay. In the UK, prices are pretty high at the moment, certainly higher than you'll pay at home. The per unit price you pay is made up of a couple of things, the cost of the electricity of course, but also some of the fixed costs the network has to pay, including paying for operational teams, maintenance teams, network connection fees, borrowing the money for the installation, and their profit. Those fixed costs get split across sessions, added to the per unit price you pay. That means that the more charging is done, the more sessions there are to spread those costs across. The utilisation of the network will probably start quite low, with a limited number of people using them, but as utilisation goes up, the prices should come down. In a capitalist society, prices are held in check by competition. Early on in each area, there may not be any competition, but there will be in time. Once enough people are using the network, other players will enter the market, and competition will start to do what it always does, ensure pricing remains reasonable. The overnight price for charging in Guildford is 44 pence per kilowatt hour, a lot more than you'd pay at home. However, it is still cheaper than petrol or diesel. What's more, we expect the VAT on public charging to be reduced soon in the UK, and once competition opens up, we should see prices fall further still. Finally, on pricing, don't confuse DC rapid charging with AC charging. The price of AC charging can be significantly lower than DC charging, as the charge points are an order of magnitude cheaper. They are a lot less complicated, and so they should also be more reliable. Other than the kit to collect payment, there's not all that much in an AC charge point. In summary, there are plans afoot to solve charging for those without off-street parking, and it's mainly with slow AC charge points, not DC rapid chargers. No matter where in the world you are, people are aware of this problem and will be determining how to solve it, where to install all of those lovely residential AC charge points so they are close to you. Where possible, you will probably want to work towards a private solution of your own, in the long term anyway. That's likely to be a bit more convenient in the long run, and perhaps a bit cheaper too. If you live in a flat, then start working out whether a charging solution could be installed and look to see if there are any subsidies that might help with costs. If you park on street, then start to think if a cross-pavement solution might work for you. there could also be a scheme to help with the costs of that too. If a private solution is not possible for you or not affordable for you, then reach out to your local government body and start to inquire about how the public network is being planned to see how and when it might be available to you. Register your interest with them so that they know for sure that you need the public network for your charging, and ask to be kept informed. And finally, keep an eye out for the installation of these residential charge points. Changes are afoot in many places, and knowing about the installations can help with your long-term planning. Alright, tell me, how do you feel about the rollout of residential charging? Are you excited by this news and intrigued by the level of support for EV charging in local government? Or do you think it's a pipe dream, despite what you've heard today? I'm interested in your point of view. What's more, I'm interested in your experience if you currently use the public network for your everyday charging. Let me have your thoughts in the comments section. If you've liked this week's video, then it will be a huge help to me if you click the thumbs up button, and I would love to have you as a subscriber of the channel if you want to see more from me. Thanks.